ghost Christmas path. And look, when it comes down to it, and I'll hold my hands up and say to you, look, boxing for me, when I got into boxing, my kind of world view of boxing when I was growing up was Amir Khan. And then when I went off to uni and things, I started watching boxing a lot more later on in life. Of course, coupled with the rise of the likes of AJ and more importantly George Groves. I really like George Groves. I really like Chavez Jr. Really like the Contender. George Groves, when he fought Carl Froch, sparked the kind of hardcore in me, and I started watching boxing. When you come to revising for exams and things, boxing in some form was always on late at night, at weekends, and things like that. But what I'm trying to say to you there, in that kind of list of things that got me into boxing, Mike Tyson didn't figure in that. Of course, I knew about Tyson as a pop culture icon and being a wrestling fan. He kind of filtered into wrestling as well a couple of times too. But in terms of actually seeing him and living through his career, never got a sense or feel of that. So to see Mike Tyson return to the ring in the form of the exhibition that he had with Roy Jones Jr. was a bit of a treat as well too, but sort of an understanding as to this is two older guys who are moving around a little bit and a bit of fun and a bit of a shake around. And this competitive edge where Jake Paul, he challenge him, whatever it may be, and they're going to have a fight, and it's going to be a legit fight that's on his record. I think it was clear to see that even though I hadn't seen Tyson myself, but through these videos and fights that you watch after the fact, sure, that this was a shadow of the former self of Mike Tyson. I don't think he looked like his knee was braced up there. He looked like he, for a round or two, had a bit in him. And then after that, he was shuffling and not really moving well, couldn't really land much punches, couldn't really throw too much, and it didn't take a beating from Jake Paul in any way. But whatever the CompuBox numbers or whatever the tally numbers up were, there were too many punches for Tyson to take for whatever it was. Not that it got like bad to watch in there; it just wasn't really like any sort of spectacle or any kind of need for it really. And I think Jake, to be fair, look, there are all sorts of conspiracy theories and things, and I was one of them, thinking that this might be staged and orchestrated in some way. And even then, during the fight, I thought, why is Mike Tyson covering his gloves over his mouth? And if you're a wrestling fan, you sort of know that when you do a little bit to this and the camera cuts away, like normally people are calling a spot, they're calling a shot, go to the top rope, do this to me, do that to me, DDT, whatever it is. I thought, is that what's going on? But it turns out that there wasn't anything in that. But I do feel that it was Jake Paul who kind of held back a little bit and didn't want to hurt Mike, and kind of knew that Mike wasn't going to be able to resist many barrages of his punches. Was it a sad spectacle for you, Josh, before I jump into the chat, as I thought it was as well?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the nicest of watches, not even in the sense that Mike was taking a lot of damage, but it was more just the sense that you could see Mike shouldn't have been in there in the first place. And that was a big talking point in the build up. When I was doing various interviews throughout the week, a lot of boxing people were saying this shouldn't be happening, this it's not right. Um, Especially when at first it was meant to be an exhibition fight, but due to backlash, it then got turned into a professional fight, obviously with the tweaked rules of 14-ounce gloves and 2-minute rounds. But yeah, it was very sad to see. I'm just glad that Jake kind of clocked on and didn't hurt him too much. Um, but I feel for Jake it is a bit of a lose-lose situation. Regardless, I feel he doesn't gain a lot from that, apart from a £40 million paycheck, which I mean does sound pretty nice. Um, apart from that, it is like you don't gain any credibility for that. And the sad part that it goes on the professional records as well. Mike Tyson's professional record should have finished at the end of his pro career. That wasn't a professional fight for me. Um, Talking to Adam Smith on Saturday night, just before we sat down to watch Chris Billam-Smith versus Zurdo Ramirez, he was saying that he's just glad that Jake kind of knew the script while there wasn't an actual script wrote down. Um, he was just glad that he knew the script to not unload too many big shots on Mike Tyson, but we don't know what effect they're going to have. And you see the tweet from Mike Tyson after the fight saying that he nearly died back in June. What makes you think someone who died back in June and had 8 blood transfusions, I think he said it was, what makes you think that type of fighter is going to be in a state to fight just a couple months later? Even for a professional athlete, nearly dying earlier in the year, that's not something, it's easy to get over. So, yeah, I don't think Mike Tyson should have ever been in the ring. I don't think he should be back in a ring. I know he called out Logan Paul afterwards, and I didn't really like what Logan Paul said after either, saying that he'd effing kill Mike Tyson. I wasn't a fan of that. I wasn't a fan of the event itself, and I feel it has took a lot of the limelight from the great fight beforehand in Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. I thought that was a great fight, but it's not going to get anywhere near as much attention as it deserves because of that main event. So I'm not going to say a dark day for the sport's history, but definitely something that shouldn't happen again. We shouldn't be bringing legends out of retirement to fight young athletes or young people, whether you want to classify Jake Paul as an athlete or not. You don't want to see a 58-year-old man fighting a 27-year-old bloke. It's just not. I don't know. I don't agree with it at all, really.
Well, speaking of giving some attention, let's give some attention to the people in the chat. I want to thank everyone once again for joining in. We have Vijan Kupanvu says Logan Paul calls you. You can give me a call, no worries. I don't think he's got my number though. Jack Dutton on the 45, Brimful of Asher on the 45 says Saturday was sad. What a waste of time. I want to ask a question to the chat here actually. If you're a Netflix subscriber and you're not paying anything additional on your Netflix subscription to watch the event, do you feel that you've lost something apart from the time that you've given? Do you feel hoodwinked in some way because you've not paid for anything on top of what you saw? It was a almost free additional event there. So do you feel ripped off in that way? Let me know. Ainsley Shannon says, farce all the way. Jake Paul could have stopped him at any time. Cardinal Samuels, fight Tank or somebody who's in their prime. I don't think Jake Paul will do that unless he means me, which I'm definitely not going to do that. Shannon Briggs wants all the smoke. Shannon Briggs does, and I think someone like Shannon Briggs is probably a lot more fit and in tune. I think Talksport were talking about the idea of Scott Welsh, who's still keeps himself active as well too, and that Jake wouldn't be able to handle someone like Scott, who's similarly, of course, retired, of a previous generation, but Jake wouldn't go anywhere near, and I would be inclined to agree. Jack also says Carl Froch is saying he will fight him. This is another byproduct of this. Like a lot of people in the industry, specifically former fighters, will bash this, but what they're really kind of saying is like, give me a little bit of the rub here, Jake, and you know what? If you're looking for an opponent, I'll be happy to step in and get a bag as well. Do you see it that way as well, Josh? That look, a lot of people, especially the ex fighters, maybe to a degree, wanna kind of they want to throw eggs at it, but they also want to be involved a little bit.
Oh yeah, they definitely want a slice of the pie. When Jake Paul fights, you know that there's going to be a hefty paycheck going around. Someone like Tony Bellew who had no respect at all for the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight and said it was a disgrace. But then, on the other hand, and I found it really funny what he did, going to the press conference with a 107-year-old man Norman. What a bloke! Um, you know, there's that to it as well, where okay, you can disgrace it, but then you're doing that, and then you're putting more eyes on the event. So yeah, they definitely, while they can talk as much as they want about it being a negative thing, they want the paycheck. Carl Froch, he's going to want the paycheck. But the thing is that I like the fact it's like Carl Froch, guys like Tony Bellew and Carl Froch who are calling them out, because I think they're guys who can get in the ring and give Jake Paul problems. So yeah, while they can disgrace it like as much as they want, but deep down, and they'll never say it because they don't want to look like idiots, but they're going to want us like Mike Tyson got paid 20 million to stand there for 8 rounds. Imagine how much they could make if they beat Jake Paul and then get a rematch with him or something. You can set yourself up for life. Some of them might already be set up for life. You can set up your kids for life if you want with that money. There's a lot of money going around within this crossover boxing circuit. I don't know whether you classify Jake Paul as a crossover boxer or a professional fighter now or anywhere in between. But yeah, they definitely want a little bit of that paycheck.